computers, the drummers were the first to go, weren't they? Those poor drummers.
Yeah, that's right. Luckily, they haven't been able to completely replace guitar players yet with this guy.
Getting close there.
But I think today, Sydney, like L.A. and Nashville and probably New York, they have a few guys that are doing all the session work. That's the way it's always been.
That's right.
Everybody wants that one guy.
Yeah, and if you're the guy, you're
a choice of two guys, and that's pretty much what
I remember
it is.
when I first started in Sydney, I won't mention the producers' names, but I started working for a guy, and he didn't pay. Mm. And I mentioned to Jim Kelly, I said, so-and-so is not paying. He went, oh man, don't work with him. He said, call up this other guy. I work for him all the time, and he would love that finger-picking thing you do that I don't do. And so I called up this other guy, and he started using me. He never used Jim again.
No.
Poor old
Jim.
Yeah, he thought, well, that's the last time I ever.
Not going to give you any.
But if you're, that's right. If you're in, you're in, and if you're out,
yeah.
I get quite a bit of session work these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all for myself.
All for yourself. Well, that's good.
I play all the guitar on my sessions.
I must say, I have the last few sessions I've done. I've thought, oh, what am I doing here? Playing lines that you really don't like to music that's not your thing. Yeah. And I often just think, oh man, why did I say yes to coming all the way? These days you have to drive probably 2 hours to get to wherever it is because the studios are in private homes now.
Yeah.
I really don't miss it, to tell you the truth. I have just have a nice time at home, like Larry, just doing my own thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Louie, not Larry.
Sorry. Louie.
Larry enjoys his own stuff.
I'm sure.
What would you say is are the fundamental differences between, say, a studio player and a live player? Because there are differences, aren't there? There seem to be people who are specialist session players, and sometimes you'll get perhaps somebody who does a lot of live gigging and is respected as a player, but they don't get used in the studio.
Discipline, I would say, because and the ability to follow orders from the guy who's paying you. When you're just playing live, you can do whatever you want, and if you flub something here or there, it's gone.
Yeah.
But in the studio,
well, I think for live players, there's they need to have a certain probably look and be a certain amount of showmanship going on and all that sort of stuff. In the studio, I think it's a matter of being accepted as what they call a pocket player. Because most guitar players, and I'm not excluding myself, we want to play ahead of the beat a lot and stuff like that. But when you're on a session with the best drummers in the world, the best rhythm section, you've got to be, as I say, a pocket player and fit in. The drummer doesn't want you to be rushing him. You don't want to be blowing a take by hitting a flub note. They don't have to, redo the take because you messed something up. And those other musicians are the ones that recommend you. Like the drummers and bass players, they seem to form teams. Like Hal Blaine and Joe Osborne were doing the Carpenters. They were doing Simon and Garfunkel. So many of the top artists, and then there were other drum and bass teams that got a lot of work together. But with any of those, if you were a guitar player and you did a session with them, and you weren't what they call in the pocket, so that record didn't sound like a demo, it sounded like a real record. The next time they were asked by a producer, who do you want on guitar? Unless you
Beat
really
that.
fit in, they wouldn't recommend you. But if you were comfortable, played the right thing, I mean, it was, a lot was riding on it for me as a guitar player. First of all, I had to know what to play. I had to play it in time. I had to be in tune. I had to know where to play, because a lot of it was up to me. And that first rundown, I had to figure out, okay, where are the spaces for the fills? Because the last thing you want to do is be filling over a vocal line. A lot of times we didn't have a singer there. They played us a demo. You heard the song once, and you had to mark, oh, here's 2 beats of this bar that's open, and maybe I can throw a little fill in there. So you had to, you know, all that stuff came into play. And
so you were arranging really too, in effect.
And
A lot of that goes down here.
and all of the artists and producers, and especially in those days, you had 3 hours for your session. It was booked in 3-hour blocks, and you were expected to get 3 masters in 3 hours. So all of the producers and arrangers and artists, everybody involved on that other end, they wanted to feel like they were getting the best musicians possible to be on that session. And somehow they made a distinction between guys that went on the road with the artist and session players. And I'm sure that in a lot of cases, those guys that go on the road could have sounded great on the record as well. But somehow those people in charge, they wanted guys that were known for session work.
So they didn't want to risk it. They didn't want to risk it.
That's right.
Got a budget to stick to.
But later on, when it became more of a band thing, naturally the band would play on their records. But I'm talking about back in the days when you were talking people like Barbra Streisand. They had to have session players. And, well, I mean, even the Jackson 5, you know, in the beginning, that was all session players. But when, you know, it really became more bands rather than solo artists that were doing the recording, I'm sure, you know, today, like Kings of Leon, they're not going to use session players, they're going to use their own guys.
That's right. And of course, all of the countless jingles and things to go on. That was really the bread and butter for me back then.
Yeah.
I mean, I did quite a lot of albums with people, but the bread and butter was just the jingles, TV and radio commercials, and that's another, you know, that's when the drummer, good old Doug Gallagher, who I'm working with next, you know, the producer would say, yeah, we're 31 seconds, we need 29, and Doug would just, the next take would be 29. He's got this built-in metronome, and he would just pick it up, and it would always, you know, I mean, that's a whole skill in itself.
Absolutely.
These little short 29.5-second bits of music in the old days.
And Kirk, you're I imagine a lot of the times you were picked, of course, because of your slide playing, which,
yeah,
and your slide style is really idiosyncratic. It's you, isn't it?
It has.
I mean,
that sound is, yeah, I can't get away from it. And,
well, okay, yeah, I mean, you're my favourite slide player, without a doubt. But I mean, I don't know anyone else. I can always recognise you.
Yeah.
And I bet a lot of people say that to you.
Yeah,
it's really,
I don't know what it is. Whether it's just the way I attack it, or, you know, I play in standard tuning too, which
yeah.
So I'm not playing the usual licks that you hear slide guitar players play. Yeah. That you're kind of forced to play in open tuning. Yeah. But yeah, whether it's the big, thick, heavy slide, or the heavy strings, or just my fingers.
The mixture, I think, too, of slide and single note stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of really short, almost staccato type phrases.
Yeah.
You know.
It's probably the phrasing and my choice of notes. You know, just a taste thing.
Very different.
But yeah, that's that whole technique of using your fingers. Yeah. Which is good because every time you use your finger, you're hitting a proper pitched note. So even if some of the slide notes, the intonation is a little odd, you keep resetting your ears or the listener's ear to the proper pitch when you're playing fretted notes. So it's kind of a good trick to use.
And who were your biggest influences with slide?
I'd say Lowell George first of all, but he actually played at open tunings from Little Feet, and then Ry Cooder, great player. There's quite a few. Leo Kottke. He was more of a 12-string kind of
slide,
big open tunings. More of a, kind of a lot more fret noise going on.
Yeah.
But there's not that many.
No. So again, I mean, the early blues slide players and stuff. There's really not a lot of that influence in your sort of playing.
No.
Yeah. I can hear some things a little bit with Sonny Landreth.
Yeah, Sonny Landreth. He's a great player. Yeah, he's pretty new on the scene for me. But when I first started playing slide, I think it was probably Duane Allman that I first heard. It was actually on a Jackson Browne. No, it was on an Allman's Brothers record, and they were singing These Days. And I remember saying, that's a beautiful song. I wonder who wrote that. It was Jay Brown. I don't know who that is. Jackson Browne. But a lot of, I also like pedal steel. I've never owned one, but a lot of my lines, I think, are emulating that kind of pedal steel sound.
So again, with the slide, that was really just something that you heard the sound and thought, yeah, I want to do it. It wasn't a case of following a particular method or a particular...
No. It was just
trial and error.
Yeah. And I did try open tunings for quite a long time, but my fretboard, the whole layout changes in open tunings, and now I got all lost. So I just went back to standard. And there's all, you can get major, minor, diminished, all augmented. You can get all the flavors in standard tuning if you know where to look.
And a lot of the time you're, in fact I think most of the time you're dropping your bass E down to a
I often do that,
which gives you another big major chord on the 3 bass strings too.
Power chord down there. So kind of half the guitar is in open tuning, but 5/6 of the guitar is in normal tuning.
So in terms of acoustic guitars, I mean, you're both playing the Ayers guitars, of course, and what do you look for in an acoustic guitar for yourself? I mean, is there particular characteristics that you look for?
Well, not really. I mean, when I first picked up this one, as you recall, I instantly knew that I needed this guitar in my life because it's just so, it's crisp. The neck was nice. It just sounds good. And it just was easy to play. For me, it's always just how friendly is the neck. Like Lou was saying before, his Martin is a beautiful guitar down here, but up here it's the same as my old Gibson. This one was very friendly all the way up.
And was there, in your case, Louie, when you picked the same model, did you know instinctively that it would record well or was it?
It's probably something that I discovered later.
Yeah.
I had never had kind of a parlor-sized guitar. All of my acoustic guitars were pretty much dreadnought size, and we always had to roll off so much bottom end on those. But as soon as I recorded this one, all of a sudden I thought, wow, you don't have to do a lot to this because it really sits on top of the track nicely. And it played easy. Very comfortable guitar to play. And it's a pretty guitar too. It's really made very well.
They're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's stunningly well made.